Hi, everybody. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at DevOps.com, DevOps TV. I'm here at DevOps Enterprise Summit 2018 in Las Vegas, having some really interesting conversations today. And this upcoming conversation, I hope, will be equally as interesting. I have three very seasoned professionals from the banking industry here to talk about banking and DevOps. To my immediate left, I have Shaun Norris. Next to him is Mark Howell. And finally, we have John Rzeszotarski. Did I totally
No, you butchered it.
Did
Nice work. No, it's Rzeszotarski, but everybody just says Rez.
I am so sorry.
It's okay.
It's been a long day.
I bet.
So. All right. So I've always actually been kind of interested in really what some of the considerations are for DevOps in the banking industry, because it seems like there's so many compliance issues, so many regulations that the banking industry has to deal with on a regular basis. So, maybe you guys can kind of walk me through a little bit about what are some of the things that you really have to be aware of in DevOps, with DevOps in the banking industry. So, whoever wants to go first.
I guess I would say that it's extremely important that DevOps is in the financial services industry because, like you said, it's regulatory, it's security, it's got to be 100% accurate. And it's a lot more accurate to automate your processes and systems than it is to allow for manual human processes. So I think that's one of the overarching benefits. And then the other part I would say is just in our industry, we deal with complexity that's just not comprehensible to the human brain half of the time. And the only way to really, I think, solve that complexity is, once again, thinking about automation, simplification, and modernization of a lot of the different systems. And I think that goes hand in hand with DevOps. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, so risk is always front of mind for me because we have to have the appropriate risk appetite to be able to make all these changes and get them into production. There's nothing stopping us going as fast as we can until we get to the point that we want to make that decision. And that's one of the things for us that DevOps means in my environment, is that we can get better at progressing change through us and cycling through our systems. But then as we get towards production, is, as you were saying, the change management, making sure we can automate it, but making the right decisions based around risk.
All right, great. Shaun, do you have any certain considerations that you are dealing with on a daily basis that maybe other industries that are using DevOps are not?
Well, I think I agree with both the gentlemen that the number of control points we have on a typical application going into production is more than 150. So DevOps actually gives us the possibility of being able to evidence those in real time for every release. If you're doing a release several times a year, it's fairly easy to go through the manual effort of proving that all your controls are in place. If you're going to move to a fast iterative cycle where you're releasing every week or every day, you have to automate that. Doing it by hand becomes close to impossible.
Okay. So when did you guys start your DevOps journey, so to speak? At what point did your company realize that you kind of have to do DevOps or die?
So for us, we actually came to DevOps Enterprise Summit in 2015, and it was just so relatable to see other companies that had the same problems as us, right? They were taking forever to get small configurations or get servers up and running, and we're like, all right, other people are figuring this out. So that's what really prompted us to put together a strategy, a plan, and coming right out of that conference was something we eventually pitched to our CIO.
Okay, so our journey started, my journey was, it's the Lloyds journey in 2013. So I was hired, my job title has DevOps in the word, into our internet banking part of the business. And that's when we started to think about how we could sort of start transforming the way in which we deliver change. Ultimately looking at the big problem statement and picking off the little bits that we can immediately show some value and get some runs on the board and show some, results back to our sponsors, because then you can fuel the conversation around have some more money to do some more good.
I'd say we've been on a agile and DevOps journey for at least 24 months now, where 3 years ago in the bank there wasn't much in the way of agile. Things were built quite traditionally. We kind of started with agile, but really 2 years ago we started to get serious about building DevOps pipelines and automating that path from code to production. So it's an ongoing journey. We're still getting started in some ways, but it's a couple of years old.
So what's been kind of the overall environment then for your DevOps adoption? Has it been, because I've heard so much today, particularly about DevOps culture and how you really have to have that buy-in. And so I'm wondering if that was ever an issue within your organization in your your decision to kind of move to that DevOps methodology and culture and process.
I guess, well, I'm going to reference your talk, actually. So he had a great talk today. And in it, the first thing he says is like, look, we can all disagree on the definition of DevOps, right? A lot of people will define it as, is it a culture thing? Is it a technology thing? Is it a process thing? And I think, yeah, the answer is yes for all of it, right? And I think that's what's different. You're going to find that all three of our implementations of DevOps, or whatever we want to call it, is very different. But I think it's very similar to how the definition of disruption is, which is if the definition of disruption is doing something that replaces the old way, then DevOps is disruption from that standpoint. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It's doing software development and delivery different from how we were doing it before, and much better, is just the way I like to think about it.
Yeah, that's right. At our organization, as you say in the talk, I mean, you've got a different set of stakeholders as well. So it's not engineers that you go and leverage with a better tool or a better something. You need to be able to talk in terms of benefit and value.
Right.
So again, important to me on our journey was that we took some money, we did something great with it, then that sort of brought our share price up, if you like, and then we went back and asked for more and sort of built on that. And to be honest as well, at the time, 2013, DevOps was a buzzword. The C-class were all talking about it, so it was easy to sort of almost latch on to that and, let's say, abuse the term in terms of, when you go and ask for money, I'd like to do some DevOps and use that as a conversation starter, and then sort of build the value. But then you have to be able to deliver on that little chunk of investment and then build from there.
Okay, all right.
There's a danger in big enterprises, and I think if we take an honest look at ourselves, we're a bit the same, that it's a lot easier to implement the sort of outward rituals of DevOps and think of DevOps as just like changing a bunch of system administrators' job titles and setting up a DevOps team, and we have Jenkins installed, so now we're doing DevOps. The reality of doing the culture change is a lot harder. I think we've done a lot of the outward signs. We're working on the culture. We're starting to get some signs though, and showing people success cases of, I talked to a person in our risk group where they're doing up to 80 deploys a day into a UAT environment, sitting with the business and doing small iterative changes and watching them go through automated build systems, which they've never been able to do before. So those things are more powerful than just going and talking about DevOps, going and showing people real working examples.
But then, just to follow up on that, if I could, the technology plays are easy, and you do get some quick runs on the board when you put the technology plays down. The longer burn is around the culture and the ways of working, because then you sort of run out of steam with the technology angle, so you need to be showing then how you can change that culture, ways of working, and sort of change the belief systems of the people on the ground. Yeah,
we call it cheating. Because like containers are cheating, because you know what, I didn't have to convince these 4 platform teams to transform. I just turned it into containers, and I gave a lot of responsibility back to the development organization. So yeah, I like that analogy.
Well, it's easy to throw money at tools and even at processes, right? But
we're banks. We're measured by the efficiency ratio. We do not throw money around.
Okay, well, you know what I mean. But it's hard to monetize culture. A culture change is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds as though culture has been. I don't want to say a sticking point, but it's definitely been a consideration that you guys have had to work through along your DevOps journey. So. What was it specifically about the culture? Was it the fact that people thought that maybe they'd be losing their jobs if you moved to a DevOps, or was it just I've been doing it this way for 20 years and I'm just not about to change now, or?
I describe it in our organization that we were set up and optimized for compliance, as you'd expect from your bank.
Right, exactly.
There's certain implicit expectations of dealing with a bank, especially one that's been around for 165 years, that things are going to be done right and done properly and done thoughtfully and carefully. And we like to think we still do that way. And convincing people that you can go faster and have the kind of safety and reliability increases that go with it, kind of the stuff we hear about from Nicole and Jez in the Accelerate book, that's proving really helpful internally to kind of convince people and show them data and science behind it and say, look, other large organizations are not having to trade in reliability in order to go faster or trade in risk and security to go faster. They're actually increasing all three metrics at once by changing the way they work and changing the way they think about how they work.
And I think the organizational design comes into that as well. So we're on a transformation at the moment. So we can, years back we'd have the silo, the operations silo, the architecture silo, the developer silo, and sort of trading things around so that, pass the parcel in terms of, well, now it's ready for you to put into production. So I think what we are doing are on a journey in terms of completely redefining the way in which our teams are structured. We're still a large organization, as I said in the talk this afternoon, right? We can't all work for one person. But it's how we decide to work together. And I think it's showing people that they have the permission to do it, because people expect the answer to be no a lot of the time.
That's an interesting point. That's really, really interesting. So then, how long do you think it's this kind of whole culture shift has taken, or is, or you expect it to take before everybody's truly on board?
So I don't think the journey ever ends, right? I think we'll always be continuously improving, and the thing about the technology is always changing, and it's changing fast, at a very high, accelerated rate. So I wouldn't even know how to quantify that answer, just because we're always going to be trying to change our culture, and I think we celebrate the small victories, and I think that's what organizations have to do. If I can convince this one guy that never checked a piece of code into source control, and he did it, I'm going to go out and celebrate that as a humongous victory. And that's the part that really starts driving the culture change, I think, throughout the whole thing. Because every small victory is what adds up to, I think, everyone trying to get on board and everyone seeing the benefits.
Yeah, I'm with you there, right? There isn't a done. There isn't a done that we could focus on. We're a large organization. We use lots of partner organizations as well, right? So we're on the journey. We're seeing benefits now. We're seeing the changes in ways of working. We can redesign our organizations around a better collaborative way of working. But it's still, the culture has to be there. The people have to want to do it, which is the interesting thing.
All right. So one of the things that I've been talking with some other folks about today is the idea of value stream mapping. And I'm wondering how prevalent is that in your industry, in the banking industry, in DevOps? I mean, do you really have to show the value and
So have you applied for a mortgage before?
Yes.
So yes. No, obviously I think it's with all of the regulatory that's kind of evolved over time, the number of products, the number of systems that evolved over time for our industry, it's just, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of manual processes and bottlenecks to be broken down. So, and I think that's the value we get out of value stream mapping, is identifying that waste and identifying the bottlenecks, so where we can improve them. And we will be using value stream mapping for a very long time.
So I will tell you that in the 10 years between the last time I got a mortgage and I just a few months ago got a new mortgage, the process has been streamlined to the point where it was almost a pleasurable experience. Almost. See, I don't think it ever will be pleasurable, but
no, I bet
it's a
it
lot
will.
better than it was.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's come a long way.
That's great. That's great. So, in your organization, Shaun, how important is value stream mapping?
It's becoming much more important. Okay. So, for example, our retail bank, we operate in a lot of emerging markets through Africa, Middle East, Asia. The retail bank has gone and completely redefined their business around customer journeys, sort of mapping the journey of a customer through various products that they consume with the bank. And we're really pivoting. Our CEO is talking a lot about customer obsession and how we're going to reorient to focus around customers. And we're part of the culture piece is we're trying to talk about the specific DevOps idea of, this idea of systems thinking or end-to-end value. That because of the kind of siloed nature of our organization, a lot of teams want to locally optimize and forget that it doesn't matter if you're great, but everything else in the chain is terrible.
Yeah.
The overall experience for a customer is still terrible.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah. We're exactly where you are, right? So we're on a journey now for how many? 3 years. Look at a customer journeys and customer journey centric around how do I apply for a mortgage. And additionally, the value stream map as well is a very important part of the process. So we can understand where the waste is, where we can make our investments and ultimately look for the best value.
So do you think it's going to become a larger part of the conversation for your organization next year, or is it already,
It's already a large part of the
there?
conversation in our organization.
Okay.
Looking at those journeys, value stream out them end to end, bringing systems thinking into it as well. So it's not just a technology, what from a customer experience point of view, what's the outcome you want to get to, and how can you make it a pleasurable experience applying for a mortgage?
Right. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. So, looking ahead then, with your industry, where do you see kind of DevOps maybe adding even more value to your organization, and where would you like it to see add more value?
So I'll go. Sorry, I'll go for it. Security.
Mark's got an idea.
Of course.
Security.
We knew it was
Yes.
coming.
That was, you had to drop the DevSecOps into the conversation, but I think our security, compliance, and governance, as we move into the more container world, things like that, it's the new ways of working, what that technology brings, as well as how can we embed security completely along that pipeline. I think that's going to be the next big thing for us.
Shaun?
I think you're going to see DevOps move out of just the technology realm into the business realm. That's my prediction, is that as banks become increasingly more reliant on technology, people like Jamie Dimon are on the record as saying that his bank is a technology company with a banking license. That you're going to see sort of what you thought of as traditional bankers in the front office start to adopt these same mindsets of getting better at building technology themselves, and less of a kind of us versus the IT that we go to get all of our technology needs met. I think you're going to see a coming together, not just of dev and ops, but of business and tech. That's my prediction of where things are going to go.
I would say open source is really a big part of this, and for us in our industry, it's interesting. And you talked about kind of like the Capital Ones of the world, and there's a talk tomorrow where Topopal is going to actually bring a lawyer and talk about open source, which I've had conversations with our lawyers in open source, and that's it's just an interesting one, and it's something that I think is going to be very interesting to watch what happens in the industry when it comes to open source and for regulated, secure businesses like ourselves.
I think you're also going to see things like external APIs for banks. We've launched the first version of this now, where external developers can sit and integrate against a small set of our products. As banks start to have things like APIs in their public-facing product set, people are going to be interacting with them in ways that look a lot like DevOps. And so, salespeople, et cetera, people selling those services within the bank are going to have to speak that language.
I find it amazing that the banking industry traditionally has been such a locked down organization, and the fact that there are now APIs and we're using open source and we're finding all these new innovative ways or just adopting these new innovative ways to make the banks work to me is just such a change, and it really shows the power of DevOps and being able to transform organizations. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing your ideas and the way you do business, and it's greatly appreciated. It's a great conversation. So
thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.